Hi, folks, and welcome to another episode of our podcast, When I Became a Gator. I'm your host, Phillip Cheng, and our podcast focuses on the stories of various alumni around the country in the hopes of bringing closer the Gator Nation, one alumni at a time. Kevin Nguyen, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Super excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here. It's been a minute since we've last chatted.
That's right. I think the last time we saw each other was at the Asian American Student Assembly back in, I think it was 2018 at the Phillip Center.
Yeah, I think it was like 2018, like 2 years ago. That's wild.
Yeah. How have you been since then?
Well, as good as it can be in a global pandemic.
Yeah.
But it's been good. I feel like I'm out here in Los Angeles. That's where I'm currently based. And it's been nice. I've been fortunate enough to continue to still have work during this time. And yeah, just living every day as I can safely in the midst of COVID.
Yeah, glad to hear that you're safe and doing all right out there in LA. I know it's kind of a hot spot right now. For our viewers, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where you're from, what you studied when you graduated?
Yeah, absolutely. So Kevin J. Nguyen, or Kevin Cheng Wang, if you want to get all fancy yet. I graduated in the University of Florida studying telecommunications, specifically with a concentration in production. And so I think I had a concentration maybe in business too. I don't remember. It feels like forever ago. But yeah, so essentially I studied how to make content at UF. Like there isn't a specific like filmmaking like major per se. There's like film theory and whatnot. And so the best thing I could do was get into like telecommunications broadcast production. I still learned quite a bit. And now I'm out here in Los Angeles. I currently work at Snapchat. I've previously worked at places like BuzzFeed and Jubilee Media. I really focus a lot on creating digital content. That's really my day job. And then also outside of my day job, I like to do filmmaking. And so I recently finished wrapping my short film that's currently traveling to different film festivals across the country right now.
Oh, that's so awesome. I saw the clip of it. Very excited for you. And I hope it does well among the film circuit. That's
Thank
so
you.
exciting that someone from the Asian American community, such as yourself, really took off, I would say, after graduation. Was there a time at UF you felt like you resonated most as a Gator? Or was there a time where you felt like you became, quote unquote, a Gator?
Oh gosh, like there's so many moments I can think about where I really like beamed with that orange and blue pride. Yeah. But I really feel like for me, like I talk about this all the time whenever I'm doing like speaking events and whatnot, or just sharing my story. But for me, my freshman year was so rough, especially my first semester, because I just felt like as a 17, 18-year-old, like everybody came into college knowing what they wanted to do. And for me, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And sure, like, I like how you said, like, I graduated and I really took off. Like, I feel like I'm still taking off, you know? But it wasn't that quote unquote easy for me. And I think for myself, I just came in not really knowing what I wanted to do. I had this whole struggle of wanting to be financially stable, but then also wanting to pursue something creative. And it was like this whole Western and Eastern clash of cultures and values. And so I think for me, I really felt alive, you know, whenever I was in a Vietnamese student organization general body meeting. And I could be as sad and depressed about where my life was headed, but I knew that like we had our monthly general body meetings in Turlington, and I would go there, and it was just like some of the most wonderful people, just like being so prideful of our culture. And I never had that growing up in Florida. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is this is community. This is what it means, not only to be a Vietnamese American, but how fortunate am I to be here as a Gator at UF to be able to experience this.
Yeah, I totally resonate. I share the same experience in that I didn't really feel like I had a sense of community until I got to UF. And for me, it was quite a surprise. Was it sort of a shock to you as well in terms of going to Gainesville, Florida, and meeting a bunch of other Asian American students, specifically Vietnam American students that share so much cultural identity as you?
It was mind-boggling for me because I mean, like, Gainesville isn't even like the hip and happening place to be in Florida, right? Like, and I grew up in a small town, like in the middle of nowhere. Nobody knows it. And like, I didn't grow up with a lot of Asian folks and specifically like Vietnamese American folks. It was really just me and my family. And so when I was able to go onto campus and get involved in the Asian American Student Union, get involved in the Vietnamese Student Org, like I was just like culture shocked. I was like, oh my gosh, there are kids like me around my age who understand the same cultural upbringing that I had. Like I thought it was just me, you know, like, and suddenly you feel like a sense of resonance, a sense of community that you never really got a chance to experience growing up.
Yeah. And I think it's so amazing that sort of cultural experience is also tied with being at Florida, being at the University of Florida, it happening there. I think that's really amazing. When you were during that time period, how did you negotiate or balance what your parents might have expected from you at that time and wanting to go into sort of tap into the creative part of yourself?
Gosh, I mean, like that was a lot of like inner struggle for me. And I think a lot of Asian American folks, especially if you have immigrant parents, your constant struggle, if you're a creative, is just like, I want to do this, but I have that expectation to do something else. Yeah. And for myself, I was caught in between of like, you know, my parents expect so much of me to, you know, either be a doctor or pharmacist or whatever. But then I felt like there was this like inner calling to be creative. Like I was always creative growing up, but I just never fully tapped into it. And then my first semester, I actually started at UF as an architecture major. And I just like hated it. And like no shade to like architecture students, but it's just like you need to live and breathe that. And like I was not willing to commit to that. And then, you know, I switched my major to so many things because I was like, I wanted to be financially stable. I wanted to do XYZ for my parents, but then I also wanted to do things for myself. And so I switched my major 5 times within my first semester of being at UF. And at that moment, I was just like, I am unhappy. This is probably the unhappiest I've been like almost my entire life. And my parents saw that. My parents saw that my grades were slipping and that was like unknown to them. And then I had this experience, an opportunity to go to the East Coast Asian American Student Union Conference. And there I attended a workshop and I was a silly freshman. I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to sign up for this workshop because I don't even know what workshops really are. And I just read the description and it had YouTube on it. I was like, oh my gosh, I love watching YouTube. And so I went and it was led by Jubilee Media. And they shared with us 2 short films that really touched me in a way that I've never been so moved by watching a piece of content. And I was just like, there are these Asian American adults who are doing it, who also have immigrant parents. And there are plenty of doctors, pharmacists, lawyers, all of that. But how many of us are there? You know, how many of us are able to trailblaze this path for Asian American folks to be in the industry, the entertainment industry? And I was just like, I want to make social impact in this type of way. And so I didn't tell my parents that I switched my major. And so I was just like, I went back and I switched my major. Didn't tell my parents. I was so happy. And
Yeah.
then when I felt like it was right, I told my parents. I was like, "Hey, I found something I'm actually genuinely happy doing," and they
Yeah.
were so thrilled to hear that because they knew I was miserable. It,
Oh,
it took a minute for them to like get around to it,
right.
but they eventually did.
Yeah.
And, I think like honestly, it wasn't until my first job out in LA that my mom actually got off my back from being a pharmacist.
Yeah.
And so I think that was like the reassurance, like I'm gonna be okay.
Yeah. How long did you actually wait before you told them that you had changed your major?
Gosh, I think I must have told them by the end of my freshman year. I
Okay.
think that was the point because I changed my major to telecommunications probably like January, February that year. And then maybe like summer break, I was like, hey, I
Yeah.
have an announcement.
Yeah. Man, I'm sure that resonates with a lot of current students and a lot of alumni who might have also had to struggle with that balance of wanting to pursue something quote unquote prestigious in the eyes of their parents
Mm-hmm.
versus being their true selves, being creative.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of advice do you have for students right now who might be going through that same struggle of, oh, I want to appease my parents versus I know I'm a creative, I'm an artist, I have this, other side of me that I want to explore. What words do you have for them?
Gosh, that is such a good question. And what I would first and foremost say is, as a creative, nobody's journey is set. I think that is the thrilling but also scariest part of pursuing a career in a creative field, in that like you really don't know where you're going to lie or like what trajectory you're going to go in.
Mhm.
Whereas like if you were to become like a business person, lawyer, doctor, your path is a little bit more clear cut. There are milestones to it.
Right.
Whereas a creative, there's so many different ways you can make it. And what I would really say is just like really have an inner dialogue with yourself to ask yourself, is this truly what I want to do? Is this something that like, even if I'm making like minimum wage for a few years or for a really long time, will that be enough for me to get up out of bed and actually still find the same joy that I do doing the things I want to do?
Yeah.
You need to have grit. You need to have passion to go into the arts, into creative work. And if you don't have that, you're going to easily be bogged down by your friends who are pursuing the more clear-cut career paths. And you're just like, oh my gosh, like, my first year out of college, like a good chunk of my closest friends from UF were making six figures, whereas I was making minimum wage as an intern.
Right.
And I was just like, dang, like that sucks.
Yeah.
But I knew I was going to get somewhere. And I was just like, would I personally rather be crunching numbers behind a desk day in, day out? Or would I rather be on set making content so that millions of people around the world could watch that?
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to do the latter so much.
Yeah.
And so I would really start by having a really serious conversation about it. Secondly, too, is just acknowledging like your finances and then your resources. And if you're willing to really put yourself out there for networking, this career is all about networking.
Yeah.
I know every career is about networking, but this one is just like you have to. Like you literally have to meet so many different people, and you can't just wait around for opportunity to come to you. You need to seize the moment. Mm-hmm. And so like I can go on and on about that, but it's certainly not an easy road. But if you have grit, if you have determination and luck, you can make it.
Yeah. Oh, such words of wisdom. And so who are some people that you want to shout out to? Actually, they could be maybe your department or your professors, anybody that you felt was really influential in your life at UF.
Oh my gosh. I mean, these people I still talk to this day. Mm-hmm. Like I talk to like on a weekly, bi-weekly basis, just like chatting it up about random things. But if I were to have to name these folks, it's a long list. But I will say like overall, the folks of the Vietnamese Student Organization, the folks that I was involved in the Asian Kaleidoscope Month, of course, Asian American Student Union, all of these orgs just really played such a huge part in my time in college and undergrad. specifically, I have to shout out Kim Wing. She saw the diamond in the rough. I'm not saying that I'm a diamond or anything, but I was definitely in the rough. Mm-hmm. And she saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And she was, I like to say, like my tiger big sister. Mm-hmm. She really just like helped and mentored and created a path for me at UF. Of course, also Long Wang and Caleb Tran, Izzy Wan, so many folks. They're all so amazing. I can go on and on. Jan Matt, so yeah, all those folks.
Well, I hope they listen to the podcast and hear their shout out. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to get to know a little bit more about your story. And I'm sure that our listeners, especially as their students, have really taken to heart what you've said.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. If you'd like to be on our podcast, just send us an email to ufasianalumni@gmail.com or reach out to us on social media. Thanks, everyone, and go Gators!